Hi, and thank you for watching Cherie Weight Loss Journey. We're about to make my evening walk. Cherie, ready? Let's go. Okay. Um, it was raining this morning, so I had to do the treadmill walk this morning. And like I said, the treadmill will keep you on pace, right? You don't get to slow down that much at all. And you have to basically, uh, you know, keep up the pace, or shit, you're gonna fall down, right? So I tell you, I was sweating, right? I don't know what I set the pace at, but it was exhausting. Yes, it was. Been pretty much chilling today, right? I made me a protein shake for breakfast and a huge salad for lunch, right? This salad was probably as big as two of the salads that I have been eating combined, okay? I just felt like doing it. It was a little hard to push myself to get out and walk, right? Because again, I'm like, oh, you're doing so great. You even walked on the treadmill today, a whole mile. Wow. And so, yeah. But I was sweating like crazy. I'm telling you. And my dog was just looking at me like, does that mean we're not going for a walk? So I told her, I said, well, if it clears up, we could probably do a nighttime walk. And so here we are, out here doing a nighttime walk. Yeah, kids are playing in the field. Beautiful sunset, right? The only remnants of knowing that it had rained today is a few, puddles that hadn't evaporated. Because it's still about 80 degrees out. And yeah.
Poopy bag. Yeah.
Wow. What a spunky little dog. I was triggered today, right? And I was listening to this story about this Canadian woman who said that she got laid off when she was 56 years, right? She was 4 years away from being eligible for retirement. And she lives in Canada, right? So of course, I got to go and look up and see what's going on the Canada, Social Security, right? So I'm looking it up. They're saying that the average person up there gets about $900, $800 in retirement benefits from Social Security up there. I'm like, what? Right? And they also said that they had a maximum of, I think it was like 1348 or something like that. And I'm like, well, Jesus Christ, you know, full full retirement at the age of 65, and they're only getting less than $1,400. And I'm like, oh, you know, they must have a very good uh, home project plans or something up there, because, you know, definitely these people aren't walking around homeless up there in Canada. It gets too cold. All right. So she was telling her story on how she knew that she was being laid off. Well, the back of my mind was she probably seen that there were other people also getting laid off. Other people that were, you know, where these companies, are breaching the contract. And of course, she was talking about, oh yeah, she understands reconstruction. Yes, she understands these mergers. Yes, she understands downsizing, right? However, what she said was, it had happened before to her back in, I think she said 2012, where she had got a layoff. But, you know, along with the layoff, they gave them, a severance package, right? And this time, let me rephrase it. They gave her a sizable severance package, right? But she said this time when she got laid off in 2016, right? She got a small severance package, right? And then she had to go out on unemployment. She was trying to look for a job. She said it was just horrible that people wouldn't hire her, you know. So what she ended up doing was she ended up taking contract work. And she did that, and then the pandemic hit, right? And because she had did the contract work prior to the pandemic hitting, then she was able to get unemployment during the pandemic. Okay? So her story sounds a lot like mine, right? And in the back of my mind, I was like, well, who are these, geniuses that must be getting paid, to tell the employer, pay them, I don't know, $50,000, and they would save them $300,000 by getting rid of, people who are on the verge of receiving their pension. That's what my download was. That there are people out there, right, that have assigned themselves to be hitmen to kill people's career, right? And the number of careers that they kill, right, that they terminate, they're going to get paid, but they save the employer, a huge amount of money. So, because it's happening so much, right, it makes me feel like this is actually an occupation, right? That there are people out there, I don't know, maybe they use military strategies to get rid of these people. And then you know, make people afraid to speak up against it, you know, and um, if they do, they know like a million torture moves or something like that, to get back at these people. Come on. Okay? So I'm convinced that there's definitely a job occupation, killing people's pensions, and the employers are like, well, yeah, as long as you can do it and, not, um, associate your activity with what I'm doing. So it has to be completely covert, right? So they have an occupation out here for assassins to kill the pensions of people on the verge of receiving these pensions, and they're getting paid big dollars. And I'm like, well, okay, I kind of suspected that anyway, so why bring it up now? Right? Well, you're thinking that it only happened in America. I was like, yeah, I was thinking it only happened in America. Right? So now the download for me was it's also happening in Canada. It has happened in Canada. Right? And then there was a part of me that was saying, well, yes, this has something to do with, the misogynistic patriarchy, right? That had utilized this whole plan basically to try to get women, to become, wife slaves or girlfriend slaves. The only problem is a lot of women, not most and not all, but a lot of women were like, no, we don't want to be a wife slave. No, we don't want to be, your housekeeper, take care of your children, help you pay your child support, and be your bed warmer too, right? We got to be your nanny, all that stuff. No, right? So it didn't quite work out in the way that they thought it would. Right? And then some of them, they were like trying to dangle marriage in front of women. And women were like, no, when I was married, there was nobody that supported my wants and desires. I was always, bending over backwards to support him. I never got it in return, and, his wants and needs were always priority, and no, not going back there, right? So, there were some women that had really suffered, during this plot that they had to displace women as the bed warmers to these guys, right? These guys were like, well, we're not going to go to work if we don't have access to women. We're just not. So then it was like, well, we need workers. So, of course, they were like, well, where are we going to get the workers? Open up the borders, right? Open up the borders and that you'll have these workers to replace these men who are not desired or wanted by the women, right? Because at least then they'll have their workers, because of the men that are like, no, we're not going to go to work if we don't have access to women, right? But here's the reason why they don't have access to women. They don't have access to women because they don't want to be equitable with women, right? They're like, no, you want to be equal. We're like, no, equitable, right? We're not going to sit up here and compete with you, right? We're not going to sit up here and say, I can stand up and pee. No, we're not. Have a pissing contest? No, right? And they're like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? We don't understand. It's like, well, if we have to explain it to you, it's not worth it. Okay? It's just not. Figure it out. Because first of all, you don't listen. Second of all, when you do listen, you're just looking for loopholes to argue our points down, and we're not going to be argued down. Right? So, there's a lot of women that have been stalked. There's a lot of women that have been sabotaged. There's a lot of women who had to move. And there's a lot of women who actually went homeless. Okay? In this revolution. Right? See, men are like, what revolution? What do you mean, what revolution? Right? They don't know that the revolution has begun. And that's the revolution to free women from being enslaved by men and them just taking away our rights, taking away our energy and resources also. Right? And we're very serious about it. Very serious. Sorry, just had a phone call. Of course, that's my doctor. Cherie, just calling to check up on you to see when you're going to come back in here and let us take a look and see how you're doing on your medication. To see if your blood pressure has gone down, yeah. So, and that's mainly the whole thing that has started me on my weight loss journey, was the fact that, I ended up with high blood pressure. However, on the weight loss journey, a lot of things are making sense to me. The swelling of the hands and the feet and the pain. Then the pain is going to make your blood pressure go up. Your blood pressure is going to cause blockages and cause your heart to overwork. Just the whole thing. Just the whole thing. So, yeah. But anyway, like I said, that story was very similar to mine. I had watched management, sabotage the employee in putting spyware onto their computers. When I brought it to the union and to management, all they could say was, "How do you know that? That's not true." And then the union rep had kind of told me on the cool that, look, this is bigger than you, and just those words alone and the vibration that I got from him was that, not good, right? And he said that the company has more money than us. That means, me and the telecommunications union, and they have more power, and said that they could basically, deplete you of all of your finances should you try to take them to court. They can have it in court for as long as it takes to deplete you of your resources. And I was like, but this just isn't right, This needs to at least be discussed, and, wrong is wrong, right? And he was like, well, look, everybody here is at risk of having their head on the chopping block. And we all have families to feed, and we all want to keep our income. So I was disappointed, because in my mind, why have a union that's, not utilizing, the strength of the union to stop this injustice and all of this corruption. And her story was pretty much similar, but not really, right? And then one of the things that he had said was, well, this is an at-will state, right? They can fire you without cause. So either way, you'll be fighting a losing battle, right? And so that's when I was like, oh, well, damn, sounds like if I get out of this alive, I'll be doing good. And he gave me a look like, yeah, now you get it. You get it now. And yeah, it was very disappointing, to say the least, right? Because I had put in 18 years, and I was a year and a half, 18 and a half years. I was a year and a half away from being eligible for receiving, my pension early. And I was definitely thinking about retiring early. And the way her story was similar to mine was that she was also 4 years away from retirement. See, up in Canada, they can retire at the age of 60, right? And because I was like, there's 2 years difference, when she was telling her story. I'm like, here in the States, we can get early retirement at a reduced payout at the age of 62. Up there in Canada, it's 60, right? But I just can't believe that you can live off of the maximum retirement of 1382, like 1400. I'm still having to figure that out. How are they doing it? Are they all living off of housing assistance or something? What do they got going on up there? Now, I heard that their medical is pretty good too. I'm not really sure how it's set up. But needless to say, that was an old trigger that came back up, right? Because what had happened was, very, very similar to hers, right? I get laid off, you know, I'm in my 50s. Me, I was more in my mid to upper 50s. And then the pandemic hit, you know, by the grace of God, they were trying to, I don't know what they were trying to do. I guess they were trying to devastate me by delaying my last check, for 6 months. But because they did that, they actually blessed me, right? Because they paid me my last payment in 2020. And no, 2019, which made me eligible for unemployment during the pandemic. So I skirted by the hair, by chinny chin chin. It was all God's work, right? And yeah. So, I would still, love for them to investigate, and do a class action suit on how many people were, having their contracts breached, on the verge of receiving pensions, and making these corporations, actually, pay retroactive back pay, and also give these people the pension that they were entitled to, or at least an equivalent amount. Okay, because this has happened a lot. I've seen it happen, at you name it, every single company out there, right? And what they have done is they have caused so much distrust when it comes to working that people are like, yeah, what's the use? So that's another reason why they're like, why should I go to work? If you're just going to sabotage me before I have a chance, to pay my house off, or get any, pension benefits that you offered when you hired me. And I was loyal and I stayed with you, and we promoted the company, right? Then when the company gets big, you're like, we don't need you now, oh, that those benefits, that tuition, they was cutting down on the tuition, like, after the first year I got there, right? I was like, oh yes, I'm finally with a company that will pay for my tuition, right? So that I can finish my education. And then they were like, no, we now are going to put a cap on the tuition benefits, and it has to be in an area that's job related, right? So now you had a cap, and it had to be job related, and I was like, okay, no problem, you know, let me try it anyway. So then they made me jump through hoops just to get approval to get the educational benefits. So while going through the loops and jumping through this, that, and the third, right, it would pass the time, right, before, by the time it finally got approved, the class had already started. You see? So, yeah, I got enrolled. Yes, now, because you have to go through all of those steps before you can even apply for the benefits, right? So I enrolled in the school. I registered for the class. I submitted my paperwork. Then the hoops and stuff began. And then after the class had already started, was already 2 weeks in, they send me back an approval. And I'm like, approval for what? The class has already started, right? I can't even get in on a late enrollment, right? You can only get in on a late enrollment within a week of enrollment. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty clever. That's pretty clever. You know. Mhm. So now you're offering benefits to get people to come and work for the company, acting like that you're a great company. Look at all the benefits we have. Plus, you get a discount on your phone service, and not your internet, but your phone service. And so I was like, I don't know who they have, counseling them, to be so shisty and corrupt, right? To me, if you're breaching contracts, you're corrupt. All right? Period. That's it. That's all. Ain't no discussion. Oh, but, yeah, our bottom line. No, that's corruption. You breach a contract, you're corrupt. Right? And then you're offering benefits, and then you make them jump through hoops, and the delay is so long that the classes have already commenced without them. And they're like, yeah, you approved of me getting, education, but the class has already started. So it was very triggering for me to actually hear it happen to another person in another country. And I'm like, what is this? What is this hell that we're going through? And who are these people that are in charge? Just um you know and this is one of the reasons why when the pandemic hit, you had all of these people talking about we shouldn't have to sell our souls just to have a job. Okay? So there's a lot of different revolutions going on here, right? There's the revolution because the corruption, that's constant and that's always, right? Then there's this other revolution that, are between men and women, because men are very mad to have to compete with women in the workplace, right? And all of this time, they've been, abusing women financially. And now if women have their own money, they can't financially abuse them. And a lot of them, as a result, are getting violent, right? And sometimes at one point it was so violent that, police officers, they did not go to a domestic violent situation, without backup, right? And the last video that I watched on domestic violence, I think the police was so sick of these domestic violence situations that, they're like, they don't want to put their life, on a line because of these, very, very heated, emotional, irrational situations. And they wasn't taking no chances, none. If you don't show absolute cooperation with the police, somebody's going to jail. And some of them might not make it to jail. They might just end up in the hospital, or, yeah. And like I said, the last video that I watched was a domestic violence situation that happened in San Antonio. And before it was all said and done, they had the SWAT team out there. The man was in the house by himself. And I'm like, this is supposed to be a domestic violence situation. Why do they have SWAT there? Why are they staking him out like he's a criminal, right? And anyway, the video ended of him being carried out after they broke in his apartment through the back door. And that's the last, I ever heard of it. There was no follow-up video, nothing like that. I assumed that, he didn't make it. They wasn't going to give him a chance to, to sue the city and get some of these, fearful people, fired, where they couldn't, feed their family or have to lose their homes and stuff like that. So yeah, it was very triggering, to say the least. But you know what? I am so glad I had a chance to talk about it again, right? So yeah, the pandemic was very traumatic in many different ways. And we're only 3 years out of it, and we're still trying to make sense of what happened. And you have so many people even today, they're like, man, we just wish things would get back to normal. And we're like, what's normal? What are you talking about? Anyway, thank you for watching Cherie's weight loss journey. Bye.